Everyone. My name is Albert, and this is Vlogs About Nothing. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your night to join me. I really appreciate it. Is this little lump on my head distracting you as much as it's distracting me? Is it something that you think you can cure in your mid 30s? Would you like to have a full set of real hair that's thick and lustrous and will make others want to just absolutely rub on you? Then definitely try one of those things, Nutristool. I didn't mean to say that. It's Nutrafool or something. I don't know what it is, but it's that stuff that makes your hair grow, which for some reason YouTube is absolutely convinced that I need. YouTube's convinced I need a lot of stuff. Either my phone is super hacked or like I'm in real need of some stuff. And we're talking everything here from like psoriasis medication all the way on up to hair loss and including all of these new movements within the apps, um, that advocate on the pronouns. But what's funny is while I hear of his and hers, or hims and hers or something, I don't hear they or thems, like, what's up, get with the program. I'm just saying, dare I say anything, man. I can't say anything, people just get like super super upset. It's sort of like, all right, I'm really sorry, I got nothing going on, wondering why my hair is so weird and why I have so much white hair on my face. My problems are limited, I mean, I try to keep them simple. And goodness, I just every day, my eyebrow gets a little bit thicker, and I'm very happy for that because, well, I just some part of me was wondering if it would ever grow back, just because I don't shave my eyebrows, and oftentimes I'm not sure. Is it one of those things like if you shave them off, do they come back? I don't know. I guess I'll find out. Anyways, tonight I want to talk about something interesting, and it's interesting to me because I was thinking about it during our last video where we talked about occupation and as it would be, as it would feel to be in an occupied place, especially by what you'd want to be your friendly neighborhood government and not your sort of let me go take all of your lives and all of your stuff kind of a neighborhood government. So it brings to question a couple of things, right? As a social capitalist, it's really important that, that my audience understands that I am a pro business person, but not when it concerns basic human rights, not when it concerns the governance and the real need for a centralized authority to really hone in on being responsible and solely responsible for those kinds of things. And again, the aforementioned being most notably the authority in charge of the human beings in the social activities that regard the human beings that reside within the governments is ultimately the government's responsibility. And that's a socialist part of me. That is, I think, a pretty common sense kind of an understanding in that the most equitable way to distribute resources democratically through, again, just as fair as possible is with a real strong central government. And again, the power we give to the government is something that should be mirrored in that the government, must provide us with certain things. They must provide us with a quality of life that we have come to demand because we can afford it. Now, again, it's been a real long time. I mean, I'm sure for centuries, politicians have argued over what can be afforded and what cannot be. And I think through time and through an evolutionary kind of perspective, whether that be secular, atheist, or even religious driven, whatever drives us, you understand, is that at some point, beyond breaking even and beyond being profitable, a free market must become kind of socialist. It must become kind of socialist. And again, only as it concerns the rights of people, okay? Specifically the rights of people. And we can let, private enterprise and other public interests compete in a fair market, and that's something different. But I guess it's important to understand all of these things about me because I've been a conscientious objector my entire life. I've never owned a firearm. I don't believe myself for what it's worth, like in owning a weapon, I guess. And, a part of me makes me like sound like vulnerable, but like should it I mean, I don't think I hope I've never give anybody a reason to like unalive me, I mean, that's like real talk in that I mean, I understand things happen in the world and stuff, but I've always been entirely convinced that people change when they're strapped, when they're armed, in terms of they do things they wouldn't normally do. And that is scary to me because I think for the most part, there are responsible gun owners. And for the most part, I think that in that same regard, the irresponsible gun owners are only held to be irresponsible in that they couldn't get a gun in a normal way to begin with, and or the reasons they'd want to obtain a firearm to begin with in an illicit kind of manner without having to register it is probably not for a good reason anyway. But again, the socialist part of me, is like trying to solve crime by empowering people in terms of making healthcare universal, pushing for reform within pharmaceutical companies to derive compounds from organic material as opposed to synthetic compounds that, may or may not be harmful to us in the long run. There's all kinds of different socialist principles that can be applied in the modern era that can be quite successful and that will be quite successful if we do it in a timely manner and if we make it happen right. Okay, so as a conscientious objector, as I've, always said, right, even when asked, right, because most recently I was asked about my opinion on gun ownership by a young adult, right, and I remember at the time it was sort of like, if there's anything I could convey to anybody out there, right, it's just that as long as you're responsible with the firearm, then it's okay I to own one. Like it's a constitutional right. I get it. I would not even for 1 second advocate for stripping people of their fundamental constitutional right to bear an arm. Like that's legit. But in that same time, whether people ask me in real life or I feel like talking about it on my vlog, I think what's key to take away is that just as anything is hard to deal with free will, right? So is being a responsible gun owner, in that you don't want to give anybody a reason to use their gun ever against you. And that is kind of like, if that's understood, then it's always up to then the party that owns the firearms not to get, a certain kind of way with it. And mostly they adhere to all of these laws. And so it's just, I think guns and peace go hand in hand because in the modern era, I live in a country where, again, I was never anti-gun or anti-gun ownership. I've just been anti-stupid people, honestly. Anti-criminal behavior, in that if we continue to incentivize crime, crime will occur. Anything with incentives is bound to happen. And I mean, I'm not a scientist. It's just sort of like, it seems like common sense. So the best way to combat, crime ultimately in some of these kinds of ways as it concerns keeping the peace, specifically with guns and gun ownership, is to, perhaps legalize some substances and be responsible in the regulation of them and provide the network to take care of the people that have been victims of a modern day pharmaceutical mafia that has profited from their long-term demise in health, as well as some of their untimely unalives times. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's some real talk. And yeah, there's an opioid epidemic. And yeah, there's, obviously, I think the opioid epidemic is the result of lax regulation as it concerns the development and pushing and selling of substances that make companies a lot of money, but ultimately at the cost of a lot of lives. And I think if pharmaceutical companies would just sort of realign some of their values with making people better as profitable as to keep, as opposed to making and keeping people sick, I think again it's time for that discussion. I think it's long been overdue, but it's certainly time for the discussion now. If not now, then, probably never, because it's just the way things are. And that's why I'm so adamant about trying to convey some of the kinds of messages that I really would like people to hear, and be able to have their own reaction and opinion to, as it concerns just their daily life and some of the things that I think we all think about, but we never really talk about. And again, it's because y'all are busy. You're living your lives. You got stuff to do. I mean, this is I got nothing to do. This is what I'm doing. So it's my pleasure. We can talk about whatever here. And so I really appreciate the time that you give me. And I hope that you have a really good night. We have one more video. I think I'm gonna post that now. I took a little break because I was really hungry, and I hate a hamburger. So I don't know if that's a thing. I hate a hamburger. I don't know what I just said, but the consumption of a hamburger took place, and the hamburger is now, I think, in my stomach or something. I don't know. I don't know. I hope that you guys have a good night. Bye.